they say, not to your face.
Yes.
So yeah. So it seems that that's how it was. I mean, it doesn't say specifically, but they were saying, oh, they were blaspheming him into his behind his back. Okay.
সন্ন্যাসী হইয়া করে গায়ন নাচন, না করে বেদান্ত পাঠ, করে সংকীর্তন।
Although a sannyasi, he does not take interest in the study of Vedanta, but instead always engages in chanting and dancing in Sankirtan. See, here we have quote, this is a quote. So this is what they're saying. They're not addressing him directly, but they're saying it in the third person behind his back. Yeah. Purport. Fortunately or unfortunately, we also meet such Mayavadis who criticize our method of chanting and accuse us of not being interested in study. They do not know that we have translated volumes and volumes of books into English, and the students in our temples regularly study them in the morning, afternoon, and evening. We are writing and printing books, and our students study them and distribute them all over the world. No Mayavadi school can present as many books as we have. Nevertheless, they accuse us of not being fond of study. Such accusations are completely false. But although we study, we do not study the nonsense of the Mayavadis. Mayavadi sannyasis neither chant nor dance. Their technical objection is that this method of chanting and dancing is called tauryatrika, which indicates that a sannyasi should completely avoid such activities and engage his time in the study of Vedanta. Actually, such men do not understand what is meant by Vedanta. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Vedaishcha sarvair ahang eva vedyo, Vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Lord Krishna is the actual compiler of Vedanta, and whatever he speaks is Vedanta philosophy. Although they are lacking the knowledge of Vedanta presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental form of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mayavadis are very proud of their study. Foreseeing the bad effects of their presenting Vedanta philosophy in a perverted way, Srila Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhashyam Brahmasutrana. In other words, all the Vedanta philosophy in the codes of the Brahma Sutras is thoroughly described in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, the factual propounder of Vedanta philosophy is a Krishna conscious person who always engages in reading and understanding Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and teaching the purport of these books to the entire world. The Mayavadis are very proud of having monopolized the Vedanta philosophy. But devotees have their own commentaries on Vedanta, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and others written by the Acharyas. The commentary of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is Govinda Bhashya. The Mayavadi's accusation that devotees do not study Vedanta is false. They do not know that chanting, dancing, and preaching the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, called Bhagavad Dharma, are the same as studying Vedanta. Since they think that reading Vedanta philosophy is the only function of a sannyasi, and they did not find Caitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in such direct study, they criticize the Lord. Sripad Shankaracharya has given special stress to the study of Vedanta philosophy. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramanta Kopinavanta Kalu Bhagyavanta. A sannyasi, accepting the renounced order very strictly and wearing nothing more than a loincloth, should always enjoy the philosophical statements of the Vedanta Sutra. Such a person in the renounced order is to be considered very fortunate. The Mayavadis in Varanasi blaspheme Lord Chaitanya because his behavior did not follow these principles. Lord Chaitanya, however, bestowed his mercy upon these Mayavadi sannyasis and delivered them by means of his Vedanta discourses with Prakashananda Saraswati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Little talk about that. So there's different things here described by Srila Prabhupada in this purport. The first thing was about understanding Veda and Vedanta. You know the difference between Veda and Vedanta? Who knows? Please, say.
Yes,
Veda is the study of the literatures,
Okay. And
and
Vedanta?
Vedanta is the philosophy, how we act from the Vedas, isn't it?
To a certain degree, yes. To a certain degree. Anyone else? That's close.
Or the
Veda,
philosophical
yeah,
aspect.
Prabhuji,
No.
Vedas, like 4 Vedas.
Yes. And Vedanta?
Who
End of
studied
knowledge.
What's
the
that?
knowledge? Who studied Vedas?
Just samam bonam, the Vedanta, end of knowledge. Just reach the
Knowledge.
Yes.
Raise
The conclusion. After there, originally there was one Veda. Vyasadeva, seeing the short attention span of people in the age of Kali, decided he would break it down into 4 Vedas: Rik, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. Just like, I don't know if you've ever had to work with a kid, a child who's a little distractible. Sometimes you say, okay, do one thing at a time. Does that happen? Yeah, just do one thing at a time. You don't give too many instructions all at once because they'll get distracted. So the Veda is very voluminous. So to make it easier to assimilate, Vyasadeva broke it down, Srila Vyasadeva broke it down into 4 sections, and he gave the sections to different of his disciples, along with the Puranas and Mahabharata, to study, to understand, and to distribute it among human society. But so the Vedas include all kinds of knowledge, both material and spiritual. But the Vedanta specifically refers to the conclusion after understanding or reading and studying all those Vedas. Vedanta is to understand the conclusion of that. And those are codes that are short codes that Vyasadeva wrote after compiling the Vedas, starting with Atato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadyasya Yataha. These are the aphorisms, short codes. So they're summarizing and making a conclusion about all those different Vedas that were and Puranas that were given. So Vedanta Sutra is there, and then because they're codes and highly philosophical, different sampradayas have given their commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Sripad Sankaracharya gave his commentary called Sharirak Bhashya, and Ramanujacharya has his commentary in the Sri Sampradaya called Sri Bhasya. Similarly, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka Swami, and Madhvacharya all had their commentary on Vedanta Sutra to elucidate the meaning of the conclusion or the final understanding of the Vedas. So much Vedic information is there. Okay, let's boil it down and come to the real conclusion. What is the real purpose of all that Vedic knowledge? So similar to when the sages of Naimisharanya, we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and they say, Bhurini Bhuri Karmani Shotavyani Vibhagasha Atakshadho Trayatsaram Samudita Manishya Bruhi Badraya Bhutanam Yenatma Suprasidati. So they spoke to Sutta Goswami and they said, the Vedas are very voluminous. And in all of them, there's so many different philosophical understandings and things that are duties that are telling you to do. So you please take the essence of all those Vedic teachings and explain them to us so that our hearts will be fully satisfied. So a similar idea. So the different, all the sampradayas have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and the Gaudiyas, the branch of the sampradaya of Madhvacharya, Brahma Madhvacharya, did not, like Lord Chaitanya and the six Goswamis, including Jiva Goswami, did not write a commentary Vedanta Sutra, that branch of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. Any reason, any guess about why they didn't write one?
Because it's too vast and it cannot be like condensed.
A good guess, but no, I'm sorry.
We already have our natural commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam.
That's correct. Good. That's Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. Yeah. So they didn't. Who knows better what the meaning of a literature is than the author? The author knows, and the author, Vyasadeva, wrote Srimad Bhagavatam to elucidate the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, here it's quoted, Bhashyam Brahmasutra. Brahmasutra means Vedanta Sutra. Bhashyam Brahmasutranam. That's the commentary of the Vedanta Sutra by the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So there's really no need of any commentary. Srila Prabhupada gave the example. There was a man who wrote a book. His name was a Bengali man named Roy. I looked for this book, I couldn't find it. But anyway, he titled the book Shah Jahan. And but most of the book was all about the activities of his son, Aurangzeb. So people, they read the book and they criticized. They said, wait a minute, this book shouldn't be titled Shah Jahan. It should be titled Aurangzeb, the active. So Roy said, no, actually, Aurangzeb is doing all these things, these difficult, challenging things. In the meantime, Shah Jahan is there, imprisoned by his own son, and he's thinking, meditating on all these things that are going on, and he's feeling very bad. And I want to focus on that point. So he knew the purpose of the book was to focus on Shah Jahan instead of Aurangzeb. Similarly, Prabhupada gave this example. Vyasadeva knows the purpose of the Vedas, the purpose of Vedanta Sutra, and so he writes the commentary inspired by his guru, his own guru, Narad Muni. But at a certain point, this was also Aurangzeb had threatened to, and it had actually destroyed many of the temples in Vrindavan. So many of the deities in Vrindavan were taken to, you know where?
Jaipur.
Jaipur, yeah.
Jaipur.
Govindaji, Madan Mohan, Gopinath, so many of the deities there because they were being smashed. So when they were there, Lord Chaitanya's followers were there, and the priests who were doing the seva for the deities also came. So they began to challenge the Gaudiya Sampradaya, saying, you cannot be bona fide because you don't have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So they, of course, responded, we have the commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam of the same author, but they rejected that. So still they made some propaganda like these. They're criticizing the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Gaudiya branch of the Madhva Sampradaya, that you have no commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So the senior Vaishnav at that time in Vrindavan was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who sometimes you read in the comments of on Srimad Bhagavatam. So the devotees approached him and said, please, can you write the commentary on Vedanta Sutra? You are the topmost Vaishnav. But at that time, he was very old, and he couldn't travel from Vrindavan to Jaipur and like that. So he had one of his associates, younger, like a disciple, not initiated, but like a disciple, was Baladev Vidyabhushan. So Baladev Vidyabhushan was also a great scholar. So he asked him to write that commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Baladev Vidyabhushan, this is how somebody writes transcendental literature. They get the blessings of the previous acharyas, not they come up with it on their own. So Baladev Vidyabhushan, he had the request from his senior Vaishnav, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So then he decided to go to Jaipur, and even though he had the authorization by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he went to the temple of Govindaji, and for 3 days, he said he prostrated himself in front of the Govindaji deity, not taking any food or drink, and just begging Govinda if he could write this commentary. So after 3 days, what happened?
He started writing.
Well, there was
And
one thing that happened before that. That's correct. Correct, Mother Sudevi. But one thing happened before that.
Govinda spoke to him and he called his commentary
Yeah.
Govinda
He
Bhashya.
said, yeah. He said, Govinda said, yes, go ahead, please. You have I will help you. I'll bless you to do this. Yes. So after 3 days, he got that result. And so then they wrote the Govinda Bhashya commentary, which is there for the Gaudiya Sampradaya Vaishnavas. And Srila Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita, his Bhagavad Gita as it is, he commemorates, he dedicates it to Baladev Vidyabhushan, who wrote that Govinda Bhashya, Govinda Bhashya commentary. So this is very significant here.
Theoretically, Govinda Bhashya can be considered as another Veda because it's directly coming from Krishna.
Vedas, yeah, as Srila Prabhupada says here, whatever Krishna says is Veda. Yeah, Vedaischa sarvar ahang eva vedyo. Yeah, so Krishna knows the purpose, and that purpose was also reiterated again in Srimad Bhagavatam and again in the Govinda Bhashya. So it's important to remember that, go ahead, somebody has a question?
Yeah, I want to make myself clear about something. So Vedanta is the essence of all the Vedas, and Vedanta Sutra is where all the Vedas came. That's what it is. There's a difference between Vedanta Sutra and Vedanta.
Well, Vedanta means the conclusion or the end of knowledge, and the sutras are sutra means short codes. It's explaining that conclusion of knowledge briefly. Vedanta. So Vedanta, conclusion of knowledge, and sutra means they're explaining that conclusion of all the Vedas. Is that clear?
So they are same. Vedanta and Vedanta Sutra same.
They can be considered, yeah, usually they're often interchangeable. And we say, the Vaishnavas say, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary that explains the Vedanta Sutra. Ravinda Swarup Prabhu, when he was the temple president, he used to tell a story about where he was going to, I guess, the University of Pennsylvania for his undergraduate work, and there was a Swami there who was teaching Vedanta philosophy, a class, a credit class at the University of Pennsylvania.
Temple University.
Oh, it's Temple?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know he went undergraduate UPenn and graduate Temple. Okay, one or the other. I thought it was, okay. So anyway, so he talked to some of the students because the previous year Srila Prabhupada had been there, and even though they had a class on Vedanta, nobody knew. Srila Prabhupada came and said, "What is the meaning of Vedanta?" The first thing he asked the class, and nobody could say. So now you're more advanced than that class, because Vedanta means, so Srila Prabhupada said, Vedanta means the end of knowledge and the conclusion of knowledge. And the conclusion of knowledge, one who knows, who understands knowledge. Vedaisya sarver ahang eva vedyo. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada had come there, and he told that the result of knowledge is to know Krishna. And to know Krishna means to engage in his devotional service. And that therefore we have that name that Srila Prabhupada has, Bhakti Vedanta, understanding the goal of knowledge through bhakti, through devotional service. So that's the accurate, proper understanding. Krishna says that repeatedly in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvata tato mam tattvato gyatva vishite tadanantaram. This is, I can only be understood by bhakti. So the end of knowledge is to understand Krishna. Vedaishta sarver ahang eva vidyo. And that's possible by, as you are doing, chanting the holy names of Krishna with great attention, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Caitanya Caritamrita, engaging your mind and words and body in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead every day. That's the method. Very nice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I thought to highlight this, in the earlier days of ISKCON, when Srila Prabhupada was preaching in the West Coast, there was an article published, along these lines of the criticism of the Mayavadis in the Los Angeles Times. And it was published there. I don't know if we can look at that article. Anyway, it was published in the Los Angeles Times, and Srila Prabhupada wrote back a letter, and that was published. Here it is, which is this along these same lines. It was written by Dr. J.F. Stahl, professor of philosophy and Asian languages in the University of California, Berkeley. Mother Sobarati, are you still there?
Yes, Prabhu.
Can you read the first introductory letter there? Not Srila Prabhupada's letter, but the first letter.
Dr. J.F. Stahl, professor of philosophy and Near Eastern languages at UC Berkeley and an instructor in Indian philosophy, believes that the Krishna sect is an authentic Indian religion and that its adherents are sincere. He attributes the society's rapid increase in members to the tendency of today's younger generation to reject organized church-going, while at the same time searching for fulfillment of a belief in mysticism. He points out, however, that persons who turn away from Christianity, Mohammedanism, and Judaism have usually lost faith with the personal God of those religions and are looking for a mystical religion without absolutes. These people in the Krishna conscious Krishna movement have turned to Hinduism, but curiously, it is a cult that is highly personalistic. Stahl said, they accept a personal God, Krishna, and Christianity has that. I feel that they have transferred some of their Christian background to a Hindu sect. He also feels that they spend too much time chanting to develop a philosophy. On these grounds, he and others on the faculty turned down the request to grant credit for an experimental course in Krishna consciousness that will be taught during the winter quarter by Hans Carey, president of the sect's Berkeley Temple.
Very good, very good. So what would you respond, if anything, if we won't go down to the next, to Srila Prabhupada's response. What would you respond to this if you read that in the newspaper?
It's not true. This guy doesn't have a good understanding of what Krishna is and the whole philosophy. He just has like very flaky and very superficial understanding. And him being a professor of this religion and whatnot shouldn't be saying that if he did not have a clear clue of what Gaudiya Vaishnavism or this Lord Krishna is.
Good point. Good point. Anyone else? It's very interesting how it's similar to what the Mayavadi philosophy. They spend too much time chanting and dancing to develop their philosophy. So they're just sentimentalists, chanting and dancing, right? And he says they've kind of merged. The real understanding of God is impersonal. Or at least the Hindu understanding of God is impersonal. But somehow they've merged Christianity and Krishna consciousness and Hinduism to come up with this new brand of, or this brand of religion, because the actual Hindu religion is impersonal. Okay, so that's there. So let's read what Srila Prabhupada's response is to this first letter. Actually, the correspondence goes on and on, but we'll read just the first one. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, can you read this one? Are you there? Or you had to go? No? How about Bhakta Sean? Are you there? Anybody out there?
I will read, Prabhuji.
I can read, Prabhu.
Okay, Dronacharya Prabhu, thank you.
January 14th, 1970, editor, Los Angeles Times. Dear Sir, With reference to your article in the Los Angeles Times dated Saturday, January 11th, 1970, under the heading, Krishna Chant, I beg to point out that the Hindu religion is perfectly based on the personal conception of God, or Vishnu. The impersonal conception of God is a side issue, or one of the three features of God. The absolute truth is ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Paramatma conception is the localized aspect of his omnipresence, and the impersonal conception is the aspect of his greatness and eternity. But all these combined together make the complete whole. Dr. J.F. Stahl's statement that the Krishna cult is a combination of Christian and Hindu religion, as if something manufactured by concoction, is not correct. If Christian, Mohammedan, or Buddhist religions are personal, that is quite welcome. But the Krishna religion has been personal from a long ago, when Christian, Mohammedan, and Buddhist religions had not yet come into existence. According to the Vedic conception, religion is basically made by the personal God and his laws. Religion cannot be manufactured by man or anyone except God superior to man. Religion is the law of God only. Unfortunately, all the Swamis who came before me in this country stressed the impersonal conception of God without sufficient knowledge of God's personal aspect. In the Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is said that only less intelligent persons consider that God is originally impersonal, but assumes a form when he incarnates. The Krishna philosophy, however, based on the authority of the Vedas, is that originally that absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His plenary expansion is present in everyone's heart in his localized aspect. And the impersonal Brahman effulgence is the transcendental light and heat distributed everywhere. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that the aim of the Vedic way of searching out the absolute truth is to find the personal God, one who is satisfied only with the other aspects of the absolute truth, namely the Paramatma feature or the Brahman feature, is to be considered possessed of a poor fund of knowledge. Recently, we have published our Sri Ishupanishad, a Vedic literature, and in this small booklet, we have thoroughly discussed this point. As far as the Hindu religion is concerned, there are millions of Krishna temples in India, and there is not a single Hindu who does not worship Krishna. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is not a concocted idea. We invite all scholars, philosophers, religionists, and members of the general public to understand this movement by critical study. And if one does so seriously, one will understand the sublime position of this great movement. The chanting process is also authorized. Professor Stahl's feeling of disgust in the matter of constant chanting of the holy name of Krishna is a definite proof of his lack of knowledge in this authorized movement of Krishna consciousness. Instead of turning down the request to give Cari's course credit, he and all other learned professors of the University of California at Berkeley should patiently hear about the truth of this authorized movement, so much needed at the present in a godless society. Credit for the course was later established. This is the only movement that can save the confused younger generation. I shall invite all responsible guardians of this country to understand this transcendental movement and then give us all honest facilities to spread it for everyone's benefit. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, spiritual master of the Hare Krishna movement.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So you can see parallels between the criticism of Prakashananda Saraswati and the Kashi Mayavadis and Professor Stahl. And here's Prabhupada's response. So as he was saying in the purport, he's meeting all these Mayavadi or teachers, professors, and defeating them. So I just thought that this is just one example of that. And this used to be published in a little booklet. This Srila Prabhupada's correspondence with Professor Stahl. It was called the Vedic Way, but now it's reprinted in the chapter 3 of the Science of Self-Realization. So I encourage you to you can read the rest of this correspondence. It's very enlightening on this topic that we're reviewing now in the Caitanya Caritamrita. Thank you. Questions, comments, corrections?
Prabhu, can you please talk a little bit more about Govinda Bhashya?
I don't know anything more. That's all I know. Do you know more?
No. I just want a little bit more information on Govinda Bhashya.
You can find it.
What I understand it is the conclusion of the Gaudiya of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Well, it's consistent with Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly, but it deals with, taking the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra, like, there's the different aphorisms are Atato Brahma Jigyasa is the first one. Now it's time to understand, now that we have a human form of life, it's time to understand what is God. And Janmadyasya Yataha, God is that from whom everything emanates. So it takes those aphorisms and explains them in line with Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. I haven't read it, but it's available. I think there's a translation by Bhanu Swami, if I'm not mistaken.
So we as Vaishnava, we don't, we just accepted. We just accept Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita by Vyasadeva,
Yes.
Instead of Govinda Bhashya, we don't read.
We can read Govinda Bhashya, certainly. It's consistent with, the Vaishnava understanding of Vedas and Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. It's just not one of the books that were published so far by the BBT. Just like in any book, it depends on who's understanding, who's translating it. So usually we like to get those books in parampara. So Srila Prabhupada didn't translate it, although he dedicated his Bhagavad Gita to Baladev Vijayabhushan, the author. So certainly a bona fide, as long as we can get a good translation, because it wasn't written in Sanskrit, in English language, is written in Sanskrit language. So a bona fide translation should be there. I didn't check that. I can let you know. I can find one.
Yeah. I always hear about Govinda Bhashya. I know that we never. But it's an authorized text, but it's not been translated.
Yeah, that's what
I
don't know that. I'll have to research that and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Prabhus.
When you were talking about this book, Shah Jahan, is that book by Soumit Roy?
Maybe. I saw you put up that chat thing, but it could be.
Okay. It is not like a old text or something. It's like a very casual, very modern, book. Is that what you're referring to?
Probably not, because this was Srila Prabhupada referred to it as being written at the turn of the early 1900s. So I don't know what I didn't notice.
Oh, okay. Then this doesn't fit into that category. This is like a very casual, for kids and, basic adults. So,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
something
sorry.
else.
That is a wrong link that I sent you.
No
Sorry,
problem.
sorry.
No problem. I looked for the book. I couldn't find it. So, but I thought the example was well done. Was appropriate. The author knows the purpose. Anything else?
Did Professor Stahl ever become favorable?
I don't know. Good question.
But it seems like credit was given. There's in parentheses, it says credit was eventually given for the course. So looks like permission. Srila Prabhupada's letter was very convincing.
No, there's a series. You'll see there's a series of letters. They wrote back and forth. There was a debate in the newspaper for some time. Quite interesting.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I think the way Srila Prabhupada has presented, I think because of his greatness, I think everybody must have understood, and probably it was incorporated in the later years. Because Sri Krishna is working through Srila Prabhupada. I'm sure before the end of his life, they must have realized he's a great soul, and they must have gotten the book or something approved.
That's an interesting point. It's an interesting point.
Yes.
And it goes along. There was another professor who came to see Srila Prabhupada in Philadelphia, right here locally, and he had similar ideas to Professor Stahl. But anyway, this was I think it was 1975. So he came to see Srila Prabhupada, and in his quarters on Woodlawn, yeah. And so he came in, and they introduced him as a professor of religion. And so Srila Prabhupada said, "So, you tell me, what is your understanding of religion?" And the man said, "Well, I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. You tell me what religion is." So Srila Prabhupada turned to one of his disciples and said, "What is this? The person is teaching religion and won't say what religion is?" So the disciple said, "This is a cheater, Srila Prabhupada." And anyway, there was a heated exchange in the at the time. It depends on who the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita talks about it. There's also some devotees' memories about that, which describe it as not so heated or as being really congenial. But anyway, the Lamrita says it was there was some contesting going on, and finally the person just left in a huff. And so we were reading that story in that pastime when we're reading the Lilamrita, and one devotee who said, this is not proper Vedic etiquette. You invite someone to your house and then you give them a hard time. He was very disturbed. So I said, well, there's probably more to the story. Why didn't you? Ravinda Swarup was there. Why didn't you call him up and see if there's more to the story? So he did. He called up Ravinda Swarup, and Ravinda Swarup said it was very interesting. The next day after this incident, he went on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, and he apologized to Srila Prabhupada for having this person come. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. He chuckled. He laughed. He said, it is our pleasure. It is our pleasure and our duty to chastise the Mayavadis. And then this Ravinda Swarup said that later he met that same professor some years later, and he asked him, how is your guru? And he said, your guru saved me. Your guru saved me. Actually, the man's name was Professor Yadava. They changed it in the Lilamrita. It's Professor Yadava, means he was, a descendant of the Yadu dynasty, but he had become an impersonalist Buddhist kind of Shunyavadi, and it was involved in all kinds of irreligious, sinful activities. And he needed that shake-up from Srila Prabhupada, and by that shake-up, he changed his ways according to that. So, as you said, many people did realize this over time. Prabhupada's and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness's wonderful nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishnupada Prabhu. It was very informative and very interesting also, to know all these facts about the Vedas. I was reading about a month ago, there was some group near the Jaipur, and they were actually saying that this Gaudiya Vaishnavism is not authorized and they have no commentary. So that's why it's all
same. That's coming up again, huh?
Yeah. So thank you very much.
So like to hear the same criticisms were there for Lord Chaitanya at Lord Chaitanya's time and during Srila Prabhupada's time, and again the same criticism. So we need to learn the as you say, the response to that, to show that this is actually Krishna's or bona fide religious Krishna consciousness. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Bhampisa kripa sindhu pyevacha. Ishtanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.
Thank you. Thanks a million.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much.
One last question, Prabhuji.
Oh.
So, in all the four Vedas, the central god is Lord Krishna too, or is there some other god there? The four Vedas, who is the central god?
There are many allusions to the Supreme in the four Vedas because the Vedas are compiled for all classes of men and women. There are people in the mode of goodness, people in the mode of passion, and people in the mode of ignorance. So for the different kinds of people, there's encouragement to worship various kinds of gods. But that's why, people get distracted by, for example, it's in the Vedas that, actually Puranas, that if you want to eat meat, then better worship goddess Kali. And you go to Kalibari in the dark moon night, and you take a goat there, and the goat will, you have to whisper into the goat's ear that in this life, you're a goat, you're the animal, and I'm a man.
Next life
and I will kill you, but in your next life, I'll become the goat, you become the man, and you can kill me. So like this, and that way, so this is recommended in the Vedas. But the real the purpose of that was to this is once a month on the dark moon night. And so a smart person will realize, why should I want to come back as a goat and be killed? So there's a bunch of stuff is there in the Vedas, lots of different things. And because of that, it can be confusing to people. Therefore, Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra, and then the commentary on Vedanta Sutra was Srimad Bhagavatam, just so it would be crystal clear that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the purpose of life is for everybody, all different classes of men and women, to engage in his service. Because in the four Vedas, one can become distracted and miss the purpose, because there are a lot of stuff. There's so much stuff there.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's very clear to me now what is the essence of all the four Vedas and what is Srimad Bhagavatam. One is a generalization, and Srimad Bhagavatam is like a specialization. Like, specific. It's very specific.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for helping me understand this in such a short time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, in short, what would you respond to some person who said the Gaudiya is not a bona fide religion?
Well, depends on who it is. What is their understanding of a bona fide religion? What do they say? What does they say?
They are simply jealous. Whoever said that, they are jealous. That's all.
we'd have to see what their argument is, why it's not bona fide. I mean, what's bona fide? Everybody accepts. I mean, all what people call Hindus accept Bhagavad Gita, and
Sure.
but most people don't even know what the Bhagavad Gita says. And you know, you talk about Bhagavad Gita. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me like pearls are strung on a thread. So mostly people don't know don't know the background. I mean, if the person is coming from a Hindu or Indian background, that's something. If they're coming from a Western background, one might say it in a different way. So depending on their background or what their idea of a religion is, we might answer differently. There was a message here. What was that message? Something about a flower marathon?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that an announcement that Dronacharya Prabhu you're going to make? Or is somebody else?
You can, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay. I'll read it. Please participate in the flower marathon and support the temple. Oh, I saw that. The email was sent out yesterday, I think. So sometimes people purchase flowers for their loved ones, whether it's parents, mother, wife, sister, secretary, friend, whoever it might be. And usually, you know, if you look at flower shops, the cost of a dozen roses is quite expensive. So these roses would be offered to the Supreme Lord first, so they're not only nice gesture, but they're also prashadam, because Krishna says, what is that verse? Patram pushpam palam toyam. So he'll accept them, and when they accept them, they get spiritual potency. So if you like, or if you like, you might offer an extra dozen roses to Lord Jagannath or Radha Shri Radha Sharad Bihari. Also, I think is possible. So think about it. That'd be nice. It's this Sunday, correct? This Sunday?
Yeah, well, we have flowers
Every day.
available all the time.
Every day. I think
We will have 2 sets of flower. We will have offered prashadam only after. So we'll have unoffered flowers, and only when someone wants it, we'll offer it and give it to them. So we'll have both.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And do people reserve them online, or how do they reserve them?
Yes, online is the best. But if they have questions, they can always call me.
Okay, and say okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. So that's this Sunday. Great.
Right. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Vishnu Kada Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much.